Hi everyone, I'm John.
And I'm Natalie, and we are American Tifosi. On this podcast, we talk about everything Formula One, drama on the track, drama off the track, which we've had a lot this week. We're going to be talking about it here today.
Yeah, and this week we're going to talk about the Chinese Grand Prix in review, some of the post-race shenanigans and stuff as we move forward into the Japanese Grand Prix. Nat, what's your lasting memory from the Chinese Grand Prix?
Yeah. So my lasting memory, I think it started right off the bat when the race first started. It was definitely the crash between Charles and Lewis. I just think Lewis's like radio response was kind of funny. He said, I think like I've been hit by someone and little does he know it's his own teammate. So I think that stuck out. I've definitely seen that in the media since that happened, sort of like a meme, if you will. So yeah, I really enjoyed that. What about you?
I would, I kind of agree with you just because it just kind of leads up. Mostly my lasting memory, it was basically just kind of how ho-hum the race was. It wasn't until
Hmm.
after the race was over that we had like all the the big news that came out. So, I mean, I guess
Right.
we could say McLaren was just dominant, right? I mean, even when we start with going back to quali, Lando in Q2 was faster than
Hmm.
anybody, and he just failed to put
Right.
that together for Q3. Obviously, with
Yeah.
Oscar winning, then they're just going to be really hard to beat. I think it's going to be really interesting, their dynamic since they've kind of botched it in the past.
Right. Yeah, definitely.
So if we review some of our predictions for the
Yes,
sprint,
let's.
I had, oh, there we go. Sorry. I had Lando Max. I'm sorry. I had Lando Oscar Max.
Hmm.
And no points for Mercedes. I was wrong all the way across the board.
Yes.
Um, well, I guess Oscar getting second. Do you remember what you had? You had Max Charles Lando
Yes.
and
Max
Lance
Charles
crashes.
Lando and Lance crashes. None of those,
Uh,
that didn't happen either. So
yeah. And for the
that's
race, I
okay.
had Oscar Lando Charles. So I'll take two
There you
points there. That was
go.
pretty good.
Very
And double
nice.
double points for Alpine. That did not work out at all.
No, no, it didn't. But you got those 2 points. I'm impressed. I went with Max Oscar Lando. Um, I dare I get like a little half point.
A consolation
Oscar's in
point.
yeah, a consolation point. I said Carlos in seventh. That didn't happen, but he did score points this week, which is I was excited about.
Yeah, I agree. And unfortunately, he kind of scored points. Him and Albon both got more points just because of the disqualifications and Fernando
Right.
going out. So I
Yeah.
don't know. I guess that's probably something we should uh, to talk about, and I don't know if we want to dive into that right now. The disqualifications I had in
Sure.
my notes,
Yeah.
but I would love to hear your thoughts on if you think it was fair.
Oh, yeah. I think it was fair. I mean, Charles was under the weight limit, right? And that's the rules of the game. If
Yeah,
you aren't up to standards, you get disqualified. I'm a Ferrari fan, so of course it hurt, but honestly, it's adding to the, I guess, laughability of the memes surrounding Ferrari as a team, which is sad, but their cars weren't up to par, so they got disqualified. It makes sense.
yeah. I mean, and I think that it was. I don't know. In my time of being a Formula One fan, I don't ever remember two cars from the same team being disqualified. I know that it
Hmm.
has happened. They said that it happened a couple other times in its history, or the media has informed me. But the weird thing that I thought is both Charles and Lewis were disqualified, but they were disqualified for two different things. And I'm
Mm,
like, just how bad do you have to screw up to mess both of them? It'd have been one thing if they were
right,
both disqualified and they were both
right.
disqualified for the same thing, but they were
Yeah,
disqualified for two different things. And then also Pierre Gasly for Alpine was disqualified for the same reason as Charles, being 1 kilogram
yeah,
underweight.
right. Yeah,
And
I don't know. You're right. And that's two wrong things with their cars, which is unacceptable for
right,
any
yeah,
team, especially Ferrari.
I agree. I totally
Yeah.
agree. And that's the other thing is I did a lot of reading. On average, tires lose 3 kilograms of weight on a run. So then
Hmm.
at first they were going to try and say that, oh, it's because Charles did a one stop. So that means he would have lost more than 3 kilograms. But I think there were 9 other cars that did a one stop strategy. So
Yeah.
it it didn't hold water, and they were right to try and not fight it. I thought,
Hmm.
but I think it sucks. But Lewis winning the sprint was huge. Ferrari
Yeah, it
is
was.
no longer behind Aston Martin in
Thank
in the,
goodness.
the constructors points, and I don't think Lewis is behind um, Lance anymore either.
Okay, good.
I do want to actually
That's
talk about
ridiculous.
that because we've been kind of joking about Lance, and neither one
Hmm.
of us really like him. But something that I have been doing kind of a deep dive on to just kind of validate my feelings on how bad Lance is we've
Yeah.
had, if you count the sprint, we've had 3 races, and he's gotten points
Hmm.
in 2 of the 3, which is abnormal for him. Um,
Yes.
he's done better than his teammate, which is abnormal
Hmm.
for him. But
Right.
Fernando Alonso, the GOAT, has had like really awful luck. In the first
Yeah.
race, he runs over gravel and spins out. The gravel that
Yep.
wasn't there. In the second race, his brakes fail, and somebody called it. I think you made a note
It was
about
pure
that.
Gasly. Yeah.
That's right. Yeah, Gasly even called it. And then you consider that in the first race, Lance gets points. If I recall, he got 10th. Yeah, and then in the second race, he got points as well. But if you were a good driver on a good team, as Aston Martin fancies themselves, then you have to be
Hmm.
finishing better than 10th when 4 cars have been disqualified or don't finish, and 6 cars in
True.
the first race don't crash out. Like
Right.
10th is really just 14th then, or 16th in
Yeah.
that case, and that's where
Right.
we expect Lance to be. That's where I expect
Yes.
Lance to be. So that's, I don't know. I can vamp on this about for forever, but I don't need to keep going for my loathing for Lance Stroll.
Yeah. I get it. I'm happy for him that he's getting those points, but I really think it's just the luck of the season so far. There's been a lot of
Mhm.
disqualifications and people dropping
Crashes
out,
out.
and I feel bad for Alonso, but you know, he's won his races. He'll be fine.
Yeah, I don't know. Something else that I wanted to. We ended our last pod when we were talking about the Chinese Grand Prix, and I had
Hmm.
mentioned that it was like a cool track because it's easier to pass on. And man, that did not come true this race, did it?
Yeah,
It was just
no.
we had made a joke about using like the papaya rules drinking game, but I don't know, man,
Hmm.
we could have made the dirty air drinking game.
Dirty air, yeah.
They said dirty
I,
air so much, and I don't, yeah. And it was so hard to pass, and which is why probably Lewis won the sprint so easily. He qualified first, and then
right,
just had to stay out front. And no one could catch him.
right.
Um, Something else that I'd love to hear your take on, with you being a Ferrari fangirl and
Hmm.
the co-founder of the American Tifosi. Um,
Yes.
Lewis and Charles and Lewis agreeing to that whole, once again, Formula One didn't give us the correct sequence of the radio calls, but
Hmm.
um, I thought Lewis was perfect in how he handled letting Charles get past him in the mid race there.
Mm, yeah.
What do you think? What do you think about that?
Um, I agree. I know that also there was that moment where Charles had to let Lewis by, and they're sort of figuring out that dynamic with each other. And then with Charles accidentally bumping into Lewis in this race as well. I think they're doing good together. I think they're being like respectful of each other. You know, Charles has to respect Lewis as one, his teammate, and also an 8 world time champion. And Lewis is sort of like stepping into Charles's like home territory with Ferrari. And I think they're navigating that pretty well so far. I was a little worried that there would be like tension of who's top dog on the team, but I think so far it's going pretty well.
Yeah, and I actually, I've never been a huge Lewis Hamilton fan, but I respect his greatness, and I thought I was concerned about ego between
Hmm.
Charles, considered one of the best drivers in the world, Lewis considered the best driver in the history of Formula One. And
Right.
and then you have on Ferrari, the most iconic team in Formula One. So
Right.
the fact that he in Formula the broadcast didn't do a great job of illustrating this, but he came on the radio first. Lewis did and said, "Hey, Charles is
Hmm.
faster than me. When the time comes, I'm going to let him through." And they made it
Yeah.
look like there was beef, but every single time that Lewis said wait, he had good reason to say wait. Like
Hmm.
he was passing people, he was gaining on people in front of him, um, or Charles was like 2 seconds behind him. Wasn't getting why would he slow
Sure.
down that? So I thought it
Yeah.
was great. I'm
I
encouraged
think,
that that
yeah.
is happening. I'm disappointed that Charles uh, and Lewis had a little collision. Um,
Hmm.
that's for two of the 20 racers on the grid that are most respected for being able to open race like that. For that
Yeah.
to happen is kind of disturbing. Although it's weird.
Yes.
I mean, he loses part of his front wing and then goes faster. So
Yeah.
I don't know.
I
In
did notice it.
contravention to
Yeah.
science and physics.
Yeah, I don't get it either. I will say that the Lewis Charles moment there during the race of Lewis allowing Charles to pass through, it kind of gave me flashbacks to the Lando Oscar race in Melbourne, but we don't have to dwell on that. The past is the past. But I do really
That's
appreciate Lewis was really respectful with that.
yeah, and actually that's a really good point, Natalie, because it could have been ugly like it was for Oscar and Lando at least two or
Right,
three times last year. So and
right.
we may have that moving forward. We're going to see what papaya rules really mean moving forward. I think.
Right. Yeah.
So I have a funny question for you that I want to
Okay.
ask
Okay.
with Ferrari and their 5 year history of being able to mismanage strategy.
Yes.
I think V Carb has taken that and said to Ferrari, "Hold my beer," because
Oh,
they have
really?
two races in a row. I
Yeah.
think just completely screwed up the two strop
Yeah.
strategy this time when
Hmm.
everyone had proven it. And I think that man, I feel bad for Yuki and Isaac because they had really good cars
Yeah.
and
Absolutely.
their pit strat ruined them. Yuki should have been seventh or eighth instead of I think 12th after the DQs.
Hmm.
Isaac should have probably gotten points, and it wasn't for either one of them. It wasn't their fault. They had a good car, they
Yeah.
had good driving, they had terrible strategy. I
Yeah.
just, yeah,
Yeah. It's going to be pretty hard to take that beer from Ferrari for a while. They've just racked up a lot of poor strategy moments, but I totally get what you mean. But speaking of Yuki, should we talk about the elephant in the room?
yeah. I think we probably should talk about the elephant in the room.
I think
What are
we
your
should.
thoughts?
My thoughts are a lot of people have been waiting for this. Yuki probably the most. Um, I don't know. I think I'm not a huge like Yuki fan. I'm not against him or not, but I know a lot of people have wanted him to join Red Bull, and they think that he was scammed out of the seat in the first place. And switching Liam out now with only two, three races, if we count the sprint race, it looks messy. It looks like Red Bull doesn't really, they're backing out of what they fully backed up on. But I'm happy for Yuki. We'll see if he does good. Again, with this theory that it's not the driver, it's the car, because the car is fit for Max. So I don't know if Yuki is going to perform well. Really, it's just whatever driver can has the same driving style as Max, which so far is no one. People say that Dan Ricciardo was maybe the closest of his teammates that are similar driving styles. So I don't know. I think we're just gonna have to see how Yuki does. And if he doesn't perform amazing, I think that makes sense because Perez wasn't doing great. Liam's not doing great. So I'm sticking to the theory that it might be the car and not the driver. I feel bad for Liam, but I also know that you don't really like Liam. So if you want to give your thoughts on that.
Okay, yeah. So I think you kind of broke it down the way I feel. I don't not like I don't like how cocky Liam is as a rookie in a junior team, the way he was and the
Sure.
way that he was portrayed in this most recent season of Drive to Survive.
Yeah.
Um, I like Yuki because I think he's better than he's been allowed to show because he's always been in a crappy car.
Yes.
Um,
Yeah.
if you look back through the history of Drive to Survive, it was like all Daniel Ricciardo and a little
Mm-hmm.
bit of Gunther Steiner,
Mm-hmm.
and then Yuki was the other like big personality, and
Yeah.
Netflix did a really extraordinary job of showcasing Yuki's comprehension of four-letter English words. um,
You're right.
but but I kind of like how fiery he is. And I just feel like he's never gotten a fair shake. Like if you go
I
back all the
agree.
way back, Max and Daniel didn't get along, so then Daniel left, and then they got Pierre Gasly, and they gave him at least a half a season before he bombed.
Yeah.
And then they got Albon, and they gave him the
Mm-hmm.
other half of the season, and then they got
Yeah.
Checo, and they gave him 2 seasons. So to give Liam 2 races
Yeah.
is ruthless, and
Yes.
to me, it's that Red Bull is they're not acknowledging that it's their car.
Yeah. Yeah.
They're saying it's a
Absolutely.
so
Yeah.
to me that's wrong. There it is
Yeah.
definitely their car. This is 100%
Yes.
evidence now. I was texting a coworker of mine last night about it. Like to me, this is 100% proof that it's their
Yeah.
car, and they're too proud to admit that it's their car, and they design it for Max and only Max.
Yes.
There was a lot of skeptics in the offseason about why Lawson was brought up instead of Yuki, and it was because Lawson's driving style is more similar than Max's.
Mm-hmm.
So here's the thing that I worry about for Yuki and Liam to a certain degree is if you look at every racer that has been in the number 2 seat of Red Bull, they've never come back right. So
Mm-hmm.
Pierre
Yeah.
Gasly went back down to V car, but it was Racing Bulls or Toro Rosso or whatever it was called then. And it took him a long time, and he still never gotten a seat. Albon
Mm-hmm.
went back to Williams, and he's never gotten a good seat, and he's kind
Right.
of proven. Checo, who knows? Daniel never went back, never got.
Mm-hmm.
He left Red Bull, then went to crappy teams.
Right.
So now Liam is going to go to VCarb, and what if he does really well? Is he going to get called back up
Mm-hmm.
to Red Bull? I don't know. Is somebody like Mercedes or Ferrari going to give him a shot when he's already lost a job once? Because
Right.
those teams don't do that. Same thing with Yuki. The only other thing that I'll say is that there's 2 points that have been circulating around by people way smarter than me that there was reason for hope for Liam Lawson because
Mm-hmm.
he had a long history of racing in the next 2 races. Like he'd raced in Japan in some
Yeah.
sort of racing
Yeah.
circuit. But here's the other thing: is Yuki is Japanese, and Red
Mm-hmm.
Bull is running Honda Motors and giving Red Bull and VCarb a crap ton of money, and now they're coming to
Mm-hmm.
Japan in 2 weeks. So
Right.
I had this written down post race that I wonder how long when you had Liam Lawson qualifying 20th, and 17th, and then
Mm-hmm.
finishing out of the points, and the only reason he didn't finish 20th is because people crashed. So he didn't even finish dead last but I mean, he finished last with people on the road in 2 out of 3
Right.
races. That's, I mean, that's rough. I mean, because even Checo
Yeah.
wasn't that bad. Even Pierre Gasly wasn't that bad. Even
Right.
although they didn't get only 2 races. So yeah,
Yeah.
I'm excited for Yuki, but that's the thing is what happens if he gets 20th?
Right.
What's gonna,
What are
I'm
they
gonna
gonna?
feel really bad.
Yeah. And
Yeah.
where are they gonna put Yuki now if they demote him back? Who are they gonna put in that second seat? Because they've tried Liam, now they're trying Yuki. I I just think that
Yeah, they're not gonna call
of
up
course
Hajar.
they're no. And of course their number one priority is Max, but you need to have two drivable cars. And they
Yeah.
clearly don't have that right now, which is hurting them and it's hurting their drivers and it makes them look messy. They've gone through too many options too quickly. And are they going to have a third driver? Like you said, he's only raced 2 races. If Yuki doesn't perform well, they're going to have to find a third driver for this season. I just, it's a mess, I think.
So
So.
I'm not willing to put any money on this,
Okay.
but let's just say that Yuki doesn't do well.
Okay.
The first thing is the question I have is if Yuki doesn't do well, does he go back to V carb, and then what happens to Lawson and or
Ah,
Hajar? Do one of those guys get kicked out, or does somebody get kicked out? But let's just I'm going to make a really crazy prediction that
okay.
if for whatever reason Yuki doesn't work out, we will
Yeah.
see Daniel Ricciardo in the Red Bull seat.
Oh man.
It's
I
the
hope
last.
that's true. I really hope that's true. Drive to Survive would eat that up because the
Oh,
last season
everybody
ended
would.
with Daniel crying, drinking his scotch or whatever, and then I just know like the first scene of the next season is just going to be like him sitting down in his chair, like I'm back. I hope he comes back. I used to not be a Daniel Ricciardo fan, mostly because one of my best friends is, and I just like to play devil's advocate sometimes, but I really do like him. He's a great personality. Um, I hope he comes back. I don't know if that's going to
So that's
happen. I
I
don't
don't
think
think
it,
it's going to happen.
I don't think he has, yeah, I think I think it might be over for him, but I would love if that were to happen.
I feel like A, I don't want it to happen because that means Yuki lost his seat and he's probably out of Formula
Yeah.
One.
You
B,
think? You think Yuki's gone? Do you think Yuki, Liam, or Isaac's gone?
I believe that Liam has got a contract to race. That's why Daniel lost his seat last year.
Mm,
Um, and Yuki's contract was coming to an end this year anyway, I think. So
mm,
I believe that he would be the lowest hanging fruit and he would be the easiest. It would make he's the best of those three drivers for sure, but he's also the
yeah,
oldest.
yeah,
I don't know. I don't think it will happen, but to me, it's like if they feel like they have to replace whoever is in the number two seat, I feel like they've used up all of their nine lives. I think they're just going to have to go
yes,
back to the well of things that they had. And the last
yeah,
successful driver they had as a number two was Daniel Ricciardo. He didn't like being
hmm,
number two, which is why he left. But he
right,
didn't get fired from the team. He quit the team,
yeah,
right?
right,
Every single other person since then has been fired from the team. So
yeah,
I don't know. Yeah, it's crazy, and I feel awful, and I feel like if Yuki gets 20th, they're going to say he's crappy. And in my brain, I'm going to say he's done exactly what he's supposed to do in a crappy car. So I don't
right,
know. We'll
yeah,
see.
absolutely. I agree wholeheartedly.
I want to ask you a couple questions that I just want quick fire reactions on.
Okay, I'm ready.
If are you ready to move on from Yuki first? Sorry. Did you have any other
Oh
things you
yeah,
want?
yeah, we can move on from Yuki.
Okay. My first question is, um, do you think Oliver Behrman is too cocky?
Mm, I don't. The only reaction to Oliver Bierman I have currently is just like a sad little British boy. That's all. I just, I just, when I think of Oliver Bierman, I think about his races in the rain. But do you think he's cocky?
I don't
what's
know what to
prompting
think of
this?
him. When he passed, I think it was Liam
Oh, the
Lawson, and
Chow thing?
he yeah, I was like, dude, what are you doing saying that for? What's like you went from
No,
20th to 19th. Good job. And you
no, I
passed a
think it's
terrible driver.
funny. And maybe it's like it's British humor that we don't get. I think I like dry humor. I don't know. Well, Liam is the one who had flipped off another driver.
Checo. He flipped off Checo.
Yeah,
That's why that
yeah.
was one of the reasons
So
I like him.
I think he deserved a little chow from Oliver Bierman. I don't think he's too cocky. I think the chow thing was a little funny, and he raced for Ferrari. I think it was a funny moment, and
Yeah.
Liam's maybe sort of deserved it a little.
Well, but then also the way he's passed a couple times. So that was going to be my next quick fire question is Jack Doohan's got, I think, three or four penalties, right? So total in only three
Jeez.
races,
Yeah.
and they're all for crappy penalty or crappy passing, unsafe driving,
Yeah.
unsafe exits. So,
Yeah.
do you think he's pressing? So I say, is Ollie cocky? Is Jack doing pressing?
Pressing?
Yeah,
Pressing how?
like is he pushing too hard?
Oh. Um, yeah, he might be punching above his level a little bit. When Briatore asked him, like, do you have a driver's license? Maybe that was an important question to ask because, yeah, he is doing unsafe driving. I think he needs to settle down a little bit.
Yeah, so I kind of think that exactly, but I think he's pressing because he hears Colapinto knocking at the door, and so
Oh,
he's like
yeah.
he's trying to pass, but like it seems like Alpine should have a better car. Gasly got that penalty, but he would have finished in the points if I'm not mistaken,
Hmm.
and Doohan like was doing just fine until he starts making these silly passes and then it has to deal with the penalty. Not saying that he would
Right.
have got points like my prediction, but he at least would have done better if he wouldn't have done that weird pass and then he did a dive bomb on in was it the sprint or was it in the first race? But yeah, I think he's hurt himself.
Yeah, absolutely. I was honestly really excited to see the Alpine team together, Pierre and Jack, but yeah, I mean, I just really want Colapinto in, but
Yeah.
I also don't want Jack to go. I like Jack. I think he's funny. I think he's got a cool personality, but man, I need Colapinto. So we'll
So
see. We're on
that's what
race two, three. We're on race three.
well, moving to race, yeah. Um, that would be my I have two more quick fire questions.
Okay.
If Yuki doesn't do well, do you think
Hmm.
Red Bull will pay to steal Colapinto?
Oh, I don't know. I feel like that'd be a little risky. I think Red Bull needs like they don't they need to not put a rookie driver in there at this
I
point.
agree.
They need to find someone who knows what they're doing, who's an experienced driver, and then also is like able to adjust to the Red Bull car. Um, that would be lovely though. I would love to see Kobe, but then that wouldn't be lovely because chances are he'll fail because it's Max's car, and then we'll never hear from him again. So I hope that doesn't happen.
I think you just like saying all the weird like Italian slash Portuguese names when you say Colapinto. And what's the driver from the movie Cars that you like? Francesco.
Francesco Barinoli.
All right, I have one more question.
Okay.
You just said that rookies aren't doing well, so what do you think about Kimmy?
Timmy is doing well.
He's doing
Um,
amazing
I'm so happy for Kimmy. You know, let us say that he is in the best rookie car because Liam's
for
not in the Red Bull
sure.
anymore. Not to
Oh,
say
I think
that the Red Bull
Mercedes is a
car
better
is,
car. Yeah,
yeah,
Mercedes is a better
it
car than
is the
Red Bull
better
right now.
car.
Anyway, yeah.
So that does give him an advantage, of course, but he's doing great. I'm really happy for him. I think he's going to continue to do great. I think he's going to be in the sport for, I mean, okay, it's only been two races, but he is doing really good. Um, and I hope and I think that he has the chance to stay in Formula One for a while at least.
Yeah, I mean I think he's already guaranteed that he's gonna get the whole year. I mean, and Mercedes
Yeah,
doesn't have a history of being ruthless. They
right.
in fact in my yeah, so when did Valtteri leave? That's like the only time that they fired somebody that I can remember.
Hmm.
And that was more about Valtteri wanting to be a number one driver,
Right.
I think.
Well, and now Valtteri's back as the reserve, right?
Yeah, but I mean,
Yeah,
I honestly don't know if Valtteri left or if Mercedes forced him out. But I think it
okay.
might have been a mutual thing. But I mean, if you think about it, like they had Lewis Hamilton for forever, and then they had
Right.
George Russell just up, and maybe that's what it was. Is George they realized that George Russell was really really good and maybe just better than Valtteri. I mean, so
Yeah.
I don't
Speaking
know.
of
I mean,
that, about George Russell being really, really good, I saw this quote, and maybe it was some fake Instagram quote, but it said that Toto Wolff said that George Russell is, first he said he's one of the best drivers, and then he said that he might be the number one driver, which I don't know if that was fake or real, but that was
I
kind of
would.
ridiculous to hear.
I didn't see it, but I would bet that it's true because Toto and Christian Horner hate each other. So it's an
Yeah.
easy way to dig at it. And also, Toto Wolff is probably a little bit scorned by the fact that Lewis Hamilton
Oh,
chose to
yeah.
leave. So it's just an easy
Yeah.
way to like get a passive aggressive dig at Lewis and say, "Oh yeah, well we have our number one still." So I don't know. I mean,
Right.
Toto seems that kind of guy to me that where like if the ship's going down, he's taking everybody with him. Not that
Yeah,
the ship's going down.
absolutely. The ship is going up.
I fair, yeah, opposite of the Titanic effect probably for
Yes.
Mercedes.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean
Right.
George is doing really really well. So,
Mm-hmm.
but
Yeah.
we got a few days till before our well we got almost over a week until the Japanese Grand Prix that we're going to be hopefully casting from Italy together. That'll be fun.
Yes, that'll be great. Really
And
fun.
yeah, do you have any parting words you want to say before we sign off?
My parting words are I can't wait for the next race. I'm excited to see how Yuki does. That will probably be the big thing of the week. So we'll see how that goes. Um, we'll come back with a predictions podcast sometime next week for that Grand Prix. I'm excited. We'll see. We'll see what happens.
Yeah, I actually, and I'm gonna just take 1 minute and just say how upset the more I think about this Yuki scenario is. I just feel like it's pretty well known that Christian Horner doesn't like him, and I feel like
Yes.
you when you call not only did you screw Liam Lawson over by giving him only two races,
Right.
if you were going to be that ruthless, then why not just start Yuki in the very beginning? Because Yuki has never driven in the Red Bull car. He
Right.
didn't get the off season testing. He didn't get to
Right.
he hasn't had so and it's so now Yuki's going to a home track where they
Yep.
I think I saw somewhere that there's only been one Japanese racer to ever get a podium. I mean I have to
Mm,
check that out. So like Japan is certainly eager to have a Japanese driver do well, and now they're going to
yes.
be in Japan, and you're like so many cards are stacked against Yuki. I think that's my
Yes.
is I hope he just gives a gigantic fu to the Red Bull people and says, "Look, I'm going to drive your crappy ass car and do
Mm-hmm.
better than all these other drivers before me." I mean, I don't know. I hope so. I feel
Yeah.
I feel like he's in a lose lose situation and I want
Absolutely.
him to do really well. So we'll be
Yeah.
excited. It'll be exciting to watch. It'll be exciting to see how that all shakes out.
Absolutely.
But until next time, we will be doing our. You already mentioned we're going to do our little our prediction show, hopefully from
Yes.
Italy.
Yeah. Great.
Okay,
Well,
then we will go
signing
ahead.
off. Okay. Bye, guys. Comment, like, subscribe, all that, and we
All the
will see you
things.
guys next week.